And they're not only, it's not only in terms of per capita income, but also in terms of opportunities, in terms of all the kinds of conditions that we think of as making democratic, freely open political economic institutions work so well. The doorstep conditions to get from one to the other. First of all, what we do observe as a doorstep condition is in the self-interest of the elites in limited access society, they extend property rights to a wider and wider horizon of groups because there's opportunities for them in doing so. That is, as they develop markets in, say, third world countries, they can develop and become much more productive markets if they extend citizenship rights to a wider group of the population and therefore permit the development of a wider access to conditions. The second condition is you've got to build a much more complex institutional organizational structure to take advantage of open access. You've got to have organizations and institutions that can modify, that can change, that can adapt to new processes, that continually respond to new opportunities. And I'm going to come back to that because it's a big part of what I want to talk about. The third thing you have to have is you've got to have the military come under civilian control, or at least under non-military control. One of the things that I've experienced in the years I've been an advisor in Latin America is that I continually am in countries that suddenly have some conflict inside them, and some elite groups calls in the military and imposes a military dictatorship, which usually doesn't work very well, but which keeps them in power for a while, and that process is an ongoing phenomenon. Well, you cannot have that. I'll give you just one illustration. I was an advisor for many years to Argentina, and the president and I became very close friends, and every time I went down to Argentina, I would go and have lunch with him when we talked. And he was very receptive to ideas, and in fact, I had a little bit of a hand in improving productivity in Argentina over those periods of time. Well, I went down in the late 1980s, and he said, Doug, he said, I'm going to run for re-election. And I said, you can't do that, there's a term limit. Oh, he said, I'll just change the rules. And I said, you can't do that, the courts won't allow you to do that. Oh, he said, that's all right, I'll stack the courts. He did both. And having done it effectively, Argentina fell back, and I told him this was what's going to happen. Argentina fell back and is today back to being a limited access society when it was just emerging from that in the 1980s and early 1990s. It's hard to change society. It's in the interest of elite to try to perpetuate the conditions for obvious reasons, and generally they've been successful in doing so. And I want to emphasize, let me say it again, that each one of them operates differently. They have a different heritage, they have a different culture, and I'm going to talk about what culture is in a minute. And that makes it so that they don't work the same. So if you go to a third world country, as I do a lot, and try to give them advice on what to do, you can't draw from generalizations from what's happened in Britain, the United States, France, or the Netherlands, or countries like that, because everyone's different. And if you don't understand that, you will never understand how they work. So the three doorstep conditions only tell you what you got to do. They don't tell you how to do it. And indeed, what is missing in our book was exactly that. We did not provide a framework to explain how to get there. And that's what I'm going to talk about. You'll find a lot of pieces missing in what I'm going to say because we still don't know them. But we've picked up a lot of the pieces, and we hope that at the conference that the World Bank's having it for us on the 3rd to the 5th of June, we'll pick up the pieces because we've got people working on 10 different limited access orders to try to apply the framework and see how much insight they can draw on the way they can evolve. There's 3 things missing, and they're crucial, and this is what my talk's all about, because I'm hoping to get your help to do something about them, because every one of them we don't know enough about to be able to understand the way we should be working, the way we can solve these problems. And I still don't understand enough about it, although I'm going to try to give you some clues on it and tell you what Barry and John and I are doing next, which is going to try to shed some light on it. The first is very straightforward. You gotta know how we understand the world around us. Now, that isn't simple. The only way we understand the world around us is we have senses, eyes, ears, nose, feelings. And there's a big world out there, and we try to use the senses to try to make sense out of the world around us. Now, the way that works, in general, we know, because we've done a lot of work down in cognitive science in the last 15, 20 years, the way it works is that the senses translate to the brain impressions, although you'll note that they'll be different in every society because they will have had different experiences. So what we will translate to the brain in Papua New Guinea versus Argentina versus the United States will be completely different. But they translate, and then the brain constructs a framework. We don't know a lot about this. Oh, there's a lot of interesting work currently going on. Constructs an explanation in the mind of what makes the system work. Now that's what social scientists are presumably all about. They're an attempt to try to understand how societies work. They don't understand very well, and you will note that they're always subjective. That is because the experiences of people in different societies are going to be different. They're going to be constructed different orders of structures, so that the way beliefs evolve and provide a framework to understanding the world is a big problem that we are far from understanding yet, even though we've made a lot of success in the last 15, 20 years. That's one. I'm going to come back to that. The second is, after your beliefs have interpreted for you the way the world works, then you've got to ask, how can you structure it so it'll work the way you want it to? Now, that's what institutions and organizations are all about. And that's why those of us who try to pioneer the study of institutions have had some influence on the world is because, quite obviously, that structure of institutions and organizations has got to be the basis on which you try to build a way to make the world work better. But, again, it's subjective. It is clearly going to be influenced by the experiences in different countries, in different settings, and different policies that you've had. And the result is that you get very different structures evolving. But the structure's got to do something we've never yet done in social sciences. It's got to integrate institutions and organizations into an overreaching structure that we think is the way in which the system works. And then also it's got to pinpoint those margins in which the structure can change that'll make it work better. We're a long ways from understanding how to do that. And in a minute I'm going to talk about politics, because of all the places where we don't understand it most is in political structures.